The next course is soybean croquettes and cornmeal rolls.
In this culture where meat is considered the only protein, would people have made these and a steak?
Well, nutritionists were telling people they didn't have to. It was considered a patriotic measure to eat less meat, and it seems that people ate a little less meat. Probably not a whole lot less, but they did eat a little bit less, it seems. Julia noted earlier that there wasn't official rationing during World War I, which was true. There could have been. Herbert Hoover had the power to put rationing into action. He chose not to do so. But one of the only real rules that there was something called the 50-50 rule, which said that Americans could buy as much wheat flour as they wanted, as long as they bought equal amounts of some other flour. It could be oat, rye, barley flour, corn flour, spelt, anything that wasn't wheat.
Bread, we're talking about white bread, right?
Yes. Herbert Hoover, who was the head of the U.S. Food Administration, believed, as many people did, that white bread was the most healthful, the most nutritious, the most pure form of bread. You could see it was pure because it was white. That was a really, really strong belief at the time. Some nutritionists said, you're crazy. The bran, that's where all the protein is, that's where a lot of the nutrition is. And Herbert Hoover really fought it.
Let's talk about soybeans. I was stunned that soybeans were being used in the early 1900s.
Soy was certainly associated with Asian diets even at the time, and there was interest in the idea that Asian immigrants didn't eat meat, lived on vegetable diets, and yet seemed to work equally well, had as much energy as people who were eating wheat and beef.
All right, can we cook off some of these soybean croquettes?
Sounds good to me.
Do these have molasses in them?
Yes, they do.
Can someone explain that?
Well, molasses, which are a byproduct of cane sugar production, themselves wouldn't have been shipped to Europe, so that was one of the sugar substitutes that was also promoted at this time, along with things like maple syrup and honey. Molasses were another good substitute for regular white cane sugar.
One of the cookbooks, it says we must save fats. What's that all about?
Well, fats, especially in the form of butter, were being sent to Europe with lots of calories in them and pretty easily shipped. So butter especially was very highly valued for export.
Many Europeans are starving, or at least undernourished, and so the idea was to get as many calories as possible to European civilians, non-combatants, but also to Allied soldiers who were fighting.
Who developed these recipes?
A lot of them were home economists who were, working in new programs. Home economics was a pretty new discipline in the 1910s.
And this was a job that women were going to, middle-class women going to college and getting degrees in home economics. They were becoming professionals, and their expertise was really valued.
Was there a wheat alternative that was used more than others?
Corn was important because it was difficult to ship. Corn got weevils more easily.
And it has oils that could go rancid. For a lot of, especially white Americans who were living in the North, by the 1910s, corn had associations with African Americans, with poor people in the South, with Appalachia. So there was a concerted effort on the part of the U.S. government to sort of rebrand corn as this wholesome, all-American, food of the pioneers, food of our forefathers, sort of effort. They hired some cornmeal demonstrators. One of them was a woman who, she was a published author, but she was African American, and they had her dressed as a slave woman, wearing a kerchief and a big skirt, and she gave cornmeal supposedly antebellum demonstrations.
This myth of the happy slave was being reproduced to sell corn.
For example, you see products like Aunt Jemima's pancake mixes, which was a popular brand by the 1910s.
What do you do with soybean croquettes?
I think it's great.
Really good.
Actually, together they're very good. They would have meatless Mondays and wheatless Wednesdays.
Which
they
were
had
good.
a porkless day.
Yeah,
They did, yeah, and those were
Porkless.
handy because it was a way for you to check up on your neighbors. You could smell the beef cooking in your neighbor's house on Monday. You knew something was amiss, and sometimes people wrote to the government and reported their neighbors. There were, in fact, a lot of calls for rationing. A lot of people thought that voluntarism was unfair because it penalized the patriotic and let the slackers go about their business, with no repercussions.
There was a lot of sort of citizen policing that happened in World War I. So there was a significant anti-German, especially hysteria, really, and so things were, things that were seen as German in origin were often sort of renamed or disparaged. Things like Frankfurters and hamburgers became, those are not necessarily good words, so they would rename some of these foods as well.